Hey guys, we finally got a brand new poll out from the state of Nevada. It has felt like a long time coming. Hopefully we get some more resources and polling numbers coming out over this coming week so we can get a kind of a sense of where this race might be headed. But from this particular resource, WPA Intelligence, they sampled 413 likely voters between the dates of February 11th through the 13th, and they're showing Bernie Sanders out in front with 25% of the vote, and then relatively competitive in the race for second place, where you have Biden at 18, Warren at 13, Tom Steyer at 11, Pete Buttigieg at 10, and Amy Klobuchar as well in double digits at 10 percentage points. Now, it can be very difficult to accurately poll for a caucus because a lower percentage of the overall population shows up for a caucus in relation to a primary because it's more difficult to participate in a caucus. So we'll see how that dynamic plays out. But there is a lot at play here. So going into Nevada, you have Bernie Sanders, the clear front runner at this point. He wins the popular vote in both Iowa and New Hampshire. And then he's also taken the average polling national lead for the first time this past week that we've seen him throughout this entire past year. In general, that has been Joe Biden, who's been out in front in the average of the national polls, but he has underperformed in the first two states of Iowa and New Hampshire relative to what the polls had him at. And then also in this one, so he's bringing in 18%. For a caucus, you need enthusiastic supporters to go out and spend the time to participate in this. Joe Biden hasn't necessarily proven that he has that at this point, so perhaps this is another case where he underperforms where the polls have him at in second place at 18%. Elizabeth Warren, she has spent a lot of time, effort, and resources into having success in Nevada. She also disappointed, not necessarily as much in Iowa, but definitely in New Hampshire, not even able to get up to 10 percentage point of support in a neighboring state to where she's a senator from. Pretty disastrous of a result there for Warren. She's going to really put in her effort to try to surprise and maybe get things going back in a positive direction. I'm a bit skeptical right now on Warren. We'll see if she's able to prove the doubters wrong in Nevada. And then you also have Tom Steyer. He has spent considerable resources in Nevada as well as South Carolina, a lot of these early states, but even more so with Nevada and South Carolina than even Iowa and New Hampshire. He's hoping to have success, and he has polled a lot better in Nevada than where he did in those first two states, so you definitely expect Steyer to be something of a factor. And then you have the wild cards here, Buttigieg and Klobuchar, who surprised with their relative strength in New Hampshire in contrast to where the polls had them at, especially Klobuchar gaining a significant amount of support after the debate that was leading in to the New Hampshire primary. She got a big boost there, probably taking more of her support from individuals that had been behind the likes of Warren and Biden in that instance. We'll see if she's able to parlay that into success in Nevada. However, I'm pretty skeptical about Buttigieg and Klobuchar's chances in Nevada, as well as the following result in South Carolina, because they haven't proven that they can win minority voters, which are starting to become a lot more of a factor in the more diverse states. The Hispanic population in Nevada, the African-American population in South Carolina, that could be a big hit and a negative to them after all the positive coverage that they were getting out of New Hampshire. So at this point, you have Bernie Sanders at the top, and then the next five options, Biden, Warren, Steyer, Buttigieg, and Klobuchar, all could potentially jockey their position into getting into that second place position. It's going to be really tough to accurately predict, especially when you consider the fact that it is a caucus where you never know exactly what might happen, and having extremely enthusiastic and committed supporters is a big positive when heading into something like a caucus. So also some other data that they pulled from this particular poll was favorability of these upper-tier Democratic hopefuls, where you have Sanders at 71% favorable along with Elizabeth Warren. They did the best in terms of the overall number of favorable results, with Biden at 68% favorable, Steyer at 64%, Klobuchar at 62%, Pete Buttigieg at 59%. Also, something that's potentially a positive sign for Bernie Sanders is this particular poll, only 16% of the respondents were under the age of 35, and then on top of that, only 27% were under the age of 45. This poll skewed to being a bit older with the respondents, and I don't need to tell you guys that Sanders does considerably better among younger voters than what he does with the older generation. So the fact that this is a poll that has 55% of the respondents over the age of 55, that would also appear to be a pretty positive sign for the Vermont senator, because we've been seeing higher than expected turnout among those younger voters. They're really enthusiastic to go out and support Bernie Sanders, and particularly in a caucus where you need that enthusiasm, that could be an extra benefit for Senator Sanders. So we'll see how that dynamic plays out. So some really interesting stuff here. It's great to finally get something in the way of polling data to go off of, and we still have a little bit to go before we actually head into the Nevada caucus, which isn't this Saturday, but the Saturday following that. So we'll see how that race closes out, and then getting the final results. I'll have a ton of content for you guys in terms of making my final prediction, as well as going over the results and recapping everything. So I appreciate you stopping by. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, and I hope to see you back here for future videos.